On behalf of the Educator Effectiveness Committee, I call this meeting to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Dr. Brophy. Mr. Castile. Dr. Davis. Ms. Ellis. Mr. Garvey. Ms. Holloway. Mr. Mellering. Mr. Morris. Ms. Morris-Jones. Mr. Rock. Ms. Boucher. Ms. Bonamont. We have a quorum.
All right, first item, please.
Your consent agenda is ready for approval, adding items 3.1 through 3.5 and 4.5 and 4.6.
All right, can I get a motion? Motion. Mr. Garvey, Mr. Miller. Any comments? Questions? Public comment? Motion carries. Next item.
Your first item is on page 1, item 2.1, consideration of an update report regarding the Teacher Certification Appeals Council and an update regarding certification renewals as it relates to Compass evaluations. The recommendation is to receive the report and minutes.
Can I get a motion? Mr. Garvey, Mr. Miller, and second.
Ms. Ellis, I just want to, of course, ask the board to consider the recommendations, but one technical change on your document. I don't know which paragraph. It looks like the fourth paragraph. It says for the appeals heard February TSAC in the school system who's down at fault. The next sentence says letter of reprimand. I just want to make that should be a technical change to letter of notification, not letter of reprimand.
Okay, do we have any comments from the board?
Superintendent Berman, can you give just kind of a brief update surrounding the progress on changing the language? So is the department working on changes that it might be possible for the legislature to consider this session?
I don't know if this is going to be something that is considered this session. One of the things that we made the decision to do is, one, we have to further explore it, but one of the things we intend to do is if we have a teacher that comes before the council and they're from a particular system that does not have the completed evaluation, we will send a letter to that system notifying them that this individual teacher had to come before TSAC so that they would have a notification of that, and that's what I was changing there.
Okay, I guess just because in recent weeks I've gotten a lot of, or several emails from teachers who are having difficulty navigating this process just in terms of even the technicalities of the kinds of paperwork that they're supposed to be filling out, for an appeal. And I feel like we, in our certification process, for renewals in particular, we have quite a few hoops that teachers are having to jump through that is exacerbated when they have been out of a public school for 3 years, right, or even one of those years, and that we're just putting onerous steps in front of them in that process when the reality is in the state of Louisiana, in a lot of our schools, you don't even have to have a certification to teach. And yet we have teachers who have been through the certification process at one time, and that because of technicalities surrounding whether or not they were in a traditional public school for 3 years to get those evaluations, that we're putting barriers to them getting back in the classroom that don't necessarily need to be there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we should be looking at regulation while at the same time maintaining the bar for quality. So I don't disagree with that. One of the questions I hear sometimes is, oftentimes it's like someone who may have gone out on maternity leave, and so then they never returned to the school because the evaluation was never completed. Happy to, if you want to visit more on this later, I'd be happy to kind of get a better sense of where you might like to go with it. So I would appreciate that.
I even have some draft language for policy.
I love an individual that comes with a solution.
Ms. Holloway?
Dr. Bromley, there was a conversation of that matter in our teachers' retention meeting. I'm not quite sure if you think that Kim was there and we spoke about it. Is this an appropriate time to talk about just in general? Not it was a really good
Yeah, I
conversation.
mean, I'm happy to have him come and share whatever information from that meeting.
Maybe the ideas or the concerns that were shared. She does a great job, I believe, in the retention committee.
And the question surrounds the particular issue of evaluations not complete.
Good afternoon, I'm Cooper LBOE. So we had our last teacher recruitment, recovery, and retention task force meeting on March 1st. And one of the items on the agenda was to ask the opinion of those task force members about this item. Executive Director Davis also shared examples of some of the things you all have mentioned. So situations where a teacher is out on maternity leave or they are transferring in between types of school systems where this applies. And so the feedback received from the task force was a few things. One, they suggested having some sort of exemption for those types of situations where an educator does not have the 3 effective evaluations because they weren't evaluated due to some type of circumstance, like transferring between school systems. They also had a suggestion for a school system waiver in lieu of the 3, or one of the 3 evaluations with recommendation from wherever that person was previously. So whoever was supervising them could recommend that. They also talked about reducing the amount of certifications that were reviewed so that the certification processing is more efficient. They also talked a lot about hearing from people in the field who are doing this process every day in school systems to get their feedback, and also just hearing the different types of situations from them. And then 2 other things they shared were, one, communicating more with school systems about the process of freezing certificates so that these types of situations wouldn't happen. So how can we better inform educators about their own license and certificate and what to do in a situation like that? And then the last thing that they asked for was that if there were legislative changes, if those different options could be brought to the task force so they could get a better understanding of what it would really mean if we changed the legislation. So those are the things we heard from that task force meeting. And again, I was just there to collect their opinions about this topic.
Dr. Bovee?
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Connected to the things that Dr. Davis was saying, and I think going back to the intent of the law around the purpose being that if someone is ineffective, then they would lose their certification. Because of the way that the law reads, that it's about earning the 3 effectives to maintain that certification, it creates more of a process, and I think we are all suffering consequences from that process. So I look forward to seeing how I can help shepherd any kind of improvements we can make along.
Anybody else? Any other comments? Okay, go ahead.
Just, if we could really put a group together, and I don't know if this is the task force, some realm or whatever, department, which will put people together, to really take a look at this and see if we need to make some substantive changes in the process itself. Because the whole intent of this years ago was instituted, is if you had an ineffective teacher, this was a mechanism, this 3-year period going from level 1 to level 2, to, I guess, weed these people. I'd like for you to see what's the data show, how many people, what percentage of the people did it really affect? In other words, is the outcome of that, are we getting the outcomes we thought we were going to get? And if we're not, all of the paperwork that we're creating and all of the time, is it worth it to continue the process the way we have if we're not getting the desired outcomes? So could we, superintendent, could we really get a small group of people together to look at this and to see if we have to maybe present some revisions to the entire process?
Yeah.
It's creating tremendous work in the department. We're putting people on, we're pushing people like crazy. The personnel directors in the districts, are getting overloaded with just paperwork. And then what are we accomplishing at the end? What's the positive?
No, it's a good point, and so I think, where we have places to deregulate that, we should be looking at those things. We're also going to be looking at the teacher evaluation system more comprehensively, so happy to pulling into that work through the stores and think about who else might need to be involved.
It just gets
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we're not talking, we are. I mean, you'll see movement with legislative session.
Any other comments? Any public comments? No? Okay, motion carries. Next item.
Next item is on page 8, item 2.2, consideration of an update report regarding school nurse certification guidelines. The recommendation is to receive.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Rock, Ms. Bovee?
Yeah, so this is an example of some of the deregulation that this board approved last month. And so you approved policy language last month, and you asked us to come back just with an example of guidance that we would provide the systems, and so that's all we have provided, guidance on how this would play out for local systems. And so that's all you have there today.
Any comments?
And so it's just a recommendation to receive.
Public comment? Motion carries. Next item.
Your next item is on page 44, item 4.1, consideration of a records review regarding the reinstatement of a Louisiana teaching credential appropriate to the credentials of Mr. Donald Inslee. The recommendation is to grant, deny, or defer. And just a note to the board, he has requested that this be done in open meeting, so that's why we're not doing it behind executive session.
Okay, let me just get a motion. Ms. Holloway?
Grant, deny, or defer.
We've never done it this way before, so here we go.
We used to do it all. Yeah, that's how it was done before.
So, you want to walk us through it?
You said approve the grant.
Do we need a motion? Yes, a motion.
No,
Is he
he wants-
present?
But he wants it. Okay. It's just to get the discussion going. We can change the recommendation if y'all want after discussion. So what did they approve? His credentials. Oh, I see. Grant, deny, or defer.
Can you walk us, or are you going to walk us through this like you normally do?
Yes, but we have to have a motion
Oh, I need
before
a
we can
second.
discuss.
I got one motion, I need a second.
Somebody just guessed.
No? Somebody just make a grant, deny, or defer.
Grant, like, two grants.
Okay, okay.
But we can go back and change it.
Dr. Davis?
We don't know what we were voting on.
Second? Okay, all right. Okay, so Mr. Inslee's conviction was a DWI third offense. He does not have a first offender pardon. He did disclose it on his professional conduct form. It's been 12 years since his conviction. But to note, he has one previous felony conviction for DWI third offense in 2003. And then further arrests since his conviction, impaired intoxicated, simple battery 2017, and then most recently 2022, operating a vehicle while intoxicated. He has a total of 9 entries on his background check.
More discussion?
Or can you clarify 9 entries?
Arrested, not necessarily convictions, but he's had 9 different incidents.
Can you
Most
walk-
of them having to do with alcohol.
Okay, can you walk us through like with what we can grant, deny, or deny? What are those rules again, just so that we're all clear since this is open?
You can grant reinstatement, deny it, or defer it till a different date.
Yeah, but what are the reasons? Like, what are the things we have to hold?
rehabilitation.
How many years has it been to?
12 years since his last conviction.
And we have a statute, the limitation is how many years? 5. That was one of those things.
Yeah, as long as it's not a
15587 violation.
Yes.
Had to do a check.
You said something about 2022.
Mhm.
What happened in 2022?
He had an arrest for operating a vehicle while intoxicated.
But he wasn't
I
convicted.
don't have any conviction of that.
Do we know if it's still in the court system, or is
I
it?
don't have anything on that, so.
He's not
He's
here.
not here.
Mr. Garvey, you have something?
Yes, I would like to point out that the reason this gentleman's license was revoked was because of a third offense of DWI convicted. And then in 17, he was arrested for appearing intoxicated. And then in 2022, he was arrested for operating a vehicle while intoxicated. Go back to one of the things we're supposed to look at, which is rehabilitation. In my mind, this is not good. So I'm going to be voting against. I'm voting against
The denial.
grant or in favor of denial.
Okay. Do we have any more discussion? Okay. Guess do we need to take a vote?
You could also defer until we get him here, I mean, that's just an option, if you would like that.
You can make a
Ask your-
substitute motion to deny if you'd like.
Or, Holly, if you want to get follow up on what happened with that.
We could defer until we find out about the last one. Because if he's not convicted, we can't use that.
Yeah, I don't have any conviction on that, so I don't think he was convicted.
Okay. Steve?
I'm not sure, you can change your motion.
To defer.
Okay. I have a motion to defer. Any second? Second? Okay. Dr. Davis? Motion stands
Do you
to
want to defer to April?
and we request that he comes and check in on that last arrest. All right?
Shannon, does he have provisional right now?
No.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Your next item is on page 63, item 4.2, consideration of executive session regarding discussion of the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of a person. The recommendation is to convene executive session.
Can I get a motion? Okay, got two motions. All right, is there any public comment or board discussion on this matter before we take a roll call vote? Okay, in order for this motion to pass, 2/3 affirmative vote of members present is required. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Dr. Boofy?
Yes.
Mr. Castillo?
Yes.
Dr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Garvey?
Yes.
Ms. Holloway?
Yes.
Mr. Bellery?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Orange Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Rock? Ms. Bochet? Ms. Ellis?
Yes. All right, motion passes. I will advise the audience that we will be in executive session for the length of the time necessary for the discussion. No vote will be taken while the board is in executive session. All votes will be made in public. Additionally, public disclosure is not required of matters discussed in a properly held executive session. At this time, the board meeting stands in recess to go into executive session. order of business.
Motion.
Gary Graves, substitute.
Motion, Mr. Garvey and Ms. Holloway. Next item, do we vote?
Your next item is on page 64, item 4.3, consideration of a records review regarding the reinstatement of a Louisiana teaching credential appropriate to the credentials of Ms. Lindsay LaFonette. The recommendation is to grant, deny, or defer.
Do we want to take these in globo? We have two, or no? I don't remember. Okay, we'll just take this first one. Can I get a motion to grant, deny, or defer?
Or grant, deny, or defer for Lindsay LaFonette.
I move to grant.
Any objection, comments, objections? Okay, motion carries.
Your next item is on page 90, item 4.4, consideration of a records review regarding the issuance of a Louisiana teaching credential appropriate to the credentials of Ms. Tammy Murup. The recommendation is to grant, deny, or defer.
Can I get a motion? Got a motion to grant, second? Okay, Dr. Davis, second. Any comments, objections? Motion carries.
That concludes your agenda.